Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where I talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Agents of S.h.i.e.L.D. and iZombie. Starting off with Agents of S.h.i.e.L.D., we have Daisy coming in contact with an Inhuman who has the power to see the future. Basically, when you touch him, he sees a future, and he sees it and you see it as well. It's actually a little quite sad when you actually find out a little bit of backstory about this Inhuman. Basically, after all the Inhumans' powers ended up getting unlocked because of the fish oils and whatnot. He ended up in the beginning, it was his wife who found out about it. They found out through that way, and he always tried to change the future, but it never worked out. And, he ended up having to leave his family behind because he was afraid of ever touching his daughter, because if he touched his daughter, he would be seeing the future, but she'd also see it too. And, it's kind of sad. He kind of had to leave his whole life behind and everything for it. But, the main thing is that Daisy saw a future and she didn't, a lot of stuff went down in it. Lincoln was bloodied in the face. She saw Coulson shooting her and just all these different things. And basically, they want to try and change the future, but Fitz tells them it's pointless. Mathematically speaking, time doesn't work the way people think it is. Like, it's a straight line, but when it comes to time, there is no the past and the future. There's simply time. It exists. There's no changing it. Basically saying, pretty much everything's predetermined to go the way it's supposed to go. And I really like how Daisy handled the situation, because, Coulson too, because Coulson fine, we'll just not go through that. We'll just change the plan up. So instead of Daisy being there like she was in her vision, instead they'll send May. And what I really liked is how basically May talked Daisy into doing it, but basically they did a practice run of what they saw in her vision. Basically, it was make sure she had enough time to save, the day, save that guy who can see the future, because basically, when everything was said and done, he'd end up dying at the end of the vision, so she wanted to save him and everything. It was I just thought it was kind of neat how they would constantly trying it. It's very interesting, because it's that's how you would practically handle, practically that's how you would, properly handle having the power to see the future. We also had Andrew returning. He's turning himself in because basically he wants to see May one last time, because he's saying this next time he turns on the lash, there won't be any going back. So they lock him up and they try the cure on him. Meanwhile, while he's being injected with, the cure that Simmons has been working on, him and May end up talking, and it's very interesting because he brings up the concept of, Lash is neat. He apologizes because he's saying that, even when he's himself, there's a bit of Lash in him. And when he's lashed, there's a little bit of him left in there. That's why, when he was lashed at one time, May was able to kind of talk him down, was because of that. But he's saying he's afraid that next time he transforms, there won't be any of him left. And he even says, there's that S.h.i.e.L.D. should keep him locked up because Lash could be useful. Lash, has a purpose. There's a purpose to his madness of just randomly killing Inhumans, because Lincoln's always said that. He even says it about this guy's future power, that every power was made specifically to kind of bring balance. It has a purpose. It has a purpose in nature for those specific Inhuman powers to exist. They're not random. So I'm thinking what Lash is supposed to be the ultimate weapon against Hive, the thing that's inside of Ward, because it's supposed to lead an army of Inhumans. Lash's existence is to make sure that it doesn't happen. Lash is the counterbalance to Hive's existence, I think. Even though I don't know if Hive's really considered an Inhuman. I think he actually is considered an Inhuman, so. But, but sadly the cure didn't work, and Andrew ended up reverting back to Lash, and it's sad, because it's because May had also brought it up that she was if you had a chance to change the past, would you? She said if she had a chance, she would. Andrew was no, I'm not going to. Even with everything the way it is, I'm happy. Even if we got to this point here, it still doesn't change the fact of all the happiness I had in her past. And May decided, she was like, no, if I could go back in time, I'd change everything, because if I had never met you, you wouldn't be in this situation in the first place. He only got to this point because he got mixed up with her. And it just, she carries that guilt with her that he would not be Lash right now if it wasn't for her. And, and probably on top of that, she probably blames like any deaths, any people that Andrew's killed. She probably also carries that weight too. And it's just seeing him transform back into Lash, just all of it, just, I don't know, it breaks your heart. Just like, because you literally see her heart breaking when he turns back into Lash, and it kind of breaks your heart. But instead of May being the one that, because of the whole Andrew situation, it wasn't May who, infiltrated the place. It was actually Daisy. But, they ended up, looking at a security camera, and the group saw a quick second of Ward/Hive. I really like it because it's like Ward turned to the camera for a second, and then he was up there for a second, and then the camera shut down. I thought that was kind of cool. It kind of looked a little horror-esque, like, oh, you see like the killer or the monster on screen for like 1 second, and then it like disappears. That's what I thought when I saw it. I thought that was kind of neat, because they were like, wait, was that Ward or something looking like Ward? Or just like crap, because they finally understood what the whole thing was. We also had that situation, I kind of skimmed over. It was the whole situation where Ward Hive was talking to Malik about getting true power, and went to that place where it was basically a prosthetics, a company that was working on new artificial prosthetics. They're basically, the technology they're working on there is what, made Phil's hand. Because Ward, God, I keep doing it, Hive had Coulson's hand, the hand he used to crush Ward's chest back on that other planet, which is kind of it's kind of interesting, because it's like, he kind of brought it up. The fact is, like, what Malik wanted was power. And, when you take Coulson, for example, Coulson knew the power, felt the power that you get when you take another person's life, to feel their life, drain away. But it scared Coulson. That's why he even threw away his hand, just to kind of get that out of his head. And you had that moment where Malik was like, no. Malik was like, I'm not going to be like that. That basically he's going to dive forward with that power. He even like killed that guy by squishing his head. That was pretty brutal. After, basically the entire company had gotten signed over to Malik. And, I thought it was kind of messed up, because Hive was like, I told you I'd show you what was going to happen, and then he basically killed everyone. He has like the most brutal way of killing people, just literally eating the flesh off their bones. It's crazy. But anyway, basically, Daisy was able to run through the whole thing pretty interesting. Interestingly enough, she was able to handle the whole thing by herself. And now that I'm thinking about it, one of my favorite moments was the fact is that he slipped up and called her Sky, and he's like, just come back, just be safe, Sky. She's like, it's Daisy. He's like, get Daisy, God damn it. I just love that he, because he was kind of concerned for her, I guess he kind of let it slip in his mind. But she handled everything pretty well. Granted, she kind of got caught off guard, because one part of it was like, there was like a one-way mirror, and she was about to get shot. But then, Coulson shows up and shoots through the window. That's what she saw in her vision. Get to the top, trying to save the guy with the visions. Malik shows up and beats the crap out of her. I was like, crap, dude. He's just beating her down. The guy ends up touching, Malik, and kind of gets him distracted, and Daisy takes him down. And then, as he lays there dying, Daisy makes the promise that she'll look after his child, and just in case his child ends up having the same power as him, and she ends up touching him. And it's the thing we saw at the beginning of the second half of the season when the show came back. The whole thing in the spaceship or whatever that is, shuttle or whatever that's in outer space that's exploding. That was, that's what she saw, which makes me think like that's her up there. Because usually that's how it works. It usually means like the power involves who's ever touching him at a time. So it must mean Daisy's up there. And even, before he died, he was like, I'm so sorry. So does this mean Daisy's going to die? And then at the same time, like eventually, like it came up at the end of the episode, because basically telekinetic guy basically made sure that Ward got out, and wasn't really all that concerned about Malik. But Ward was like, how did he sound? And telepathic, I was like, he sounded scared. And at the end, I was kind of like, why is he scared? I don't get him. Like, why is he hiding? And then now that I'm recording this, I'm like, because the guy who could see the future touched him. He saw something, and it's like, what did he see that scared him so much? Partially, I'm thinking what he saw was his death. So no telling how that's going to, like, how that. Personally, I'm thinking it's going to be Hive. Hive's going to be the one to kill him. Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. Now moving on to this week's episode of iZombie. A lot of stuff went down in this episode. Major full on zombie, and we have he finally explains the whole situation to Ravi, and Ravi's like, got to tell Liv, and then Major's like, no, we can't. You know how Liv is now. She's become a seeker of justice. And if we tell her everything, what she's going to do, she's going to go off and do something stupid. Just because, that's what Liv does. She tries to get justice for everyone. And that includes Major as well as all the other zombies he had to kind of take out off the list. So they decided to keep it quiet. Liv has been looking into the whole Drake situation and ends up even beating up one of Mr. Boss's men because she was trying to get answers from him, but he kind of touched her. She was still kind of on a stripper's brain, so she kind of took him down. I love how the lady that was, at the desk in front was actually shocked when she saw Liv leave the room, and she goes in and sees the whole room trashed and the guy laying on the floor beaten down, and she's just kind of like, I do love, because Major is a zombie, which it's so weird to see him as one. He was given a brain to eat. It was kind of that girl that was like super positive all the time. Her brain is what he was eating. And this week's case dealt with a girl. What was she was running for? Student body president or something like that. Essentially, she got killed. The main suspect ends up being that dude Brody. We met him previously before. It was like a couple episodes back. It was when Liv had eaten a brain of that frat dude. It was the case where the guy was killed because he had the same name as another guy. That case, if that makes it a little clearer for you. But he was from that. I just love he was kind of talking to her, and she's not all bro-ish anymore. So he's like, "Whoa, bro, you've changed." But essentially, you end up finding out that the detective, the one that the vice cop who Belladino, is that his name? I literally was listening to it. I kept forgetting it each time. He's the one that met with Drake that one time when we found out that Drake's really an undercover cop. So ended up meeting with him and ended up finding out that because the victim. Bailey, she was essentially selling Adderall, and basically what it turns out to be, like, this cop has like a twisted system that basically he will bust people and then he'll have them kind of work as CIs for him. If they help him with 6 drug busts, then he lets them off. But so Bailey was kind of under his wing because another one of his CIs tried to like busted her just so that they could get off scot-free. And this same kid's the one that brought this to Babineau and Liv. He brought it to their attention. And so basically Liv ended up figuring out that basically this guy, well, that because it did seem like he might have been the one to kill Bailey, but that's not the case. It was actually the guy at the register, in the cafeteria. It was actually him, because essentially Bailey tried busting him, but Bailey didn't realize that he was also a confidential informant for him. This is what Liv ends up telling Clive. That guy's not a really good. He's not a bad guy per se, but his whole system is messed up. He even went to Liv to have her like keep this whole thing a secret. He wanted Liv to be like, oh, only tell him but not tell Clive. But she did tell Clive and didn't tell him. But he is a decent cop, so he ended up figuring out himself and went to confront the kid. But sadly, he didn't know that I don't know his name. I hear it and I completely forget. It's the big silent dude, the one with the missing eye that worked for Blaine. He showed up, knocked the cop out, and ended up killing the kid. And now Babineau and Liv show up. Obviously it looks a little. Yeah. But they kind of But he essentially makes a threat telling Clive that, next time you're in trouble, help might not get there fast enough. So I kind of get the feeling like he's going to be a damn problem, later down the road. I just get that feeling. He's going to come, that's just going to come back to get Clive. I just got that feeling. We also in this episode have Blaine. Blaine's kind of fallen back in, with the whole memory loss thing. Donnie has kind of taken over the operation while, Blaine deals with the mortuary stuff while Donnie deals with the whole utopium stuff. And, after getting a visit from Peyton, because he doesn't know what he's done or what's happened, he kind of goes to the morgue, kind of asking questions. Obviously, FBI lady and Clive kind of meet with him first. Clive thinks he's faking about the whole amnesia thing, but, I still don't think he is. He's genuinely sincere about that. He really doesn't remember anything. Well, basically, we have Ravi kind of explaining everything to him, everything, the whole zombie situation, who he was in the past and what he's done, and he's actually remorseful about it. So I feel like he is going to end up turning on Donnie and the others. It's just under like he was going to initially, but I feel like now he can't, especially now that he knows the whole zombie thing happening. And the whole Blaine situation, because even Major's kind of like unsure about it. Well, Ravi wants, to give him a cure, but Major's kind of like, no. Because for one, it kind of seems like Major's kind of getting accustomed to the idea of being a zombie, which I think is kind of neat. And, but he's like, if he takes that cure, basically it means that he'll forget everything. And it's like, what's the point of taking a cure if it means forgetting everything? So basically they have to find out whether the Blaine's lying or not. So the whole plan was for him to go to Max Rager and scratch Vaughn and then give him the cure and see if he remembers everything or not. Which, very interesting enough, I love that moment where basically he's making that douchey commercial and he's showing it to Rita, which we get to see her all fully zombie. She looks kind of nice. She kind of looks nice all zombified. Not saying she wasn't pretty before, but she's pretty even as a zombie. Which isn't to take away anything from Liv, because Liv is just as pretty as a zombie as she isn't as a zombie. I feel like I had to backtrack and I felt like I had to explain. I know it wasn't needed, but whatever the case may be. But anyway, it turns out, like we hear a little bit from Rita. He's keeping Rita locked up. He's like, don't worry, I'm looking for a cure for you. After obviously, Max Rager does well, then, once the drink does well and everything, then we'll be looking, for a cure for you. Basically saying his daughter takes as second priority number 2 instead of number 1, which is like, you douchebag, you were such an asshole. But essentially, it does seem like, because when Major was about to do what he did, Vaughn's kind of head of security, that guy, it comes whispering something in his ear, and it sounds like he was talking about Major's freezer. So it sounds like he found out about Major's freezer, and it looks like they were about to try and take care of Major, because it's like, I think they found him out that he's not killing the zombies. But before they can really do anything, Major was, about to go downstairs, but the FBI shows up because the FBI lady got visited by that lady that Major had brought Minor to look after. And, he kind of panicked and wasn't really thinking when he took Minor, so he came up with like a very crappy excuse. And now the lady came to the police trying to tell them, like, yeah, she ends up telling them that Major's the Chaos Killer. So, it's crazy. Things are just heating up, dude. It's crazy. Major's getting arrested, and while he's being arrested, he's kind of zombifying a little bit, and it's just like, holy crap. Next week is this season finale, and it's not just a 1 hour season finale, it's a 2 hour season finale, which is like, yes. And it looks like a lot of stuff is going to go down next episode, and I cannot wait to see it. Something very interesting that came up in this episode, I kind of want to go back to for a little bit, is the fact is that Liv brought it up in the episode. She was like, Ravi, do you think you and I would have been friends before I became a zombie? She's like, basically, she compared herself to the victim of this episode, Bailey, because of, and even Peyton kind of noticed that, like, Liv kind of had a bit of her own tendencies in this episode. Because basically, she was kind of like a go-getter, always trying to outdo herself, always kind of like going the extra mile, essentially. And, it's kind of interesting because I think in this episode, because it's always kind of been of a thing, like, we never really ever got to know the real Liv. We have always known Liv after she became a zombie, more so like, all the different personalities she's adapted. This episode, even though it was someone else's personality, it seems like it's very close to her original personality. So in a way, we kind of got to see the real Liv. It's just something interesting. I didn't really bring it up, but I kind of thought I kind of wanted to include it in this, thing. But just something to kind of think about. I thought was very fascinating. There's that question in itself too, like would they have been friends? It makes you wonder, like, it's because is it solely their circumstances that led to Ravi and Liv being friends, or would they have, I don't know if they would ever found their, like, if their worlds would have ever clashed. It's like being a zombie affected her life in, not just bad ways but good ways too, because her granted, her life's a little hectic, yeah, but she wouldn't have the friends and know the people she knows. She wouldn't have met Clive. She wouldn't have met Ravi. So, I don't know. I mean, granted, she'd still be marrying Major. And, granted, she still got Peyton. Peyton, obviously they were best friends before, still best friends now. I mean, granted, there was a bit of a rocky road when Peyton found out about her being a zombie. But still, they got back to a good place, so. But that's really all I want to talk about this episode. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.